The entrepreneur would say, why me? Why now? We had this growth strategy. I finally got my team in place. I finally got the culture in place. Everything was working. And then this shock, it's not fair. Why me? And I found myself saying, Jean, look, you can't call yourself an entrepreneur if you can't grow the company during hard times or bad times too. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to stabilize because there's been a massive system shock. We're going to reset because the situation's changed. Then we can go back to being a thriving organization. And having that conversation again and again just started to crystallize this playbook. We've got to stabilize or survive. We've got to reset and embrace change, and then we can go back to thriving. And those conversations led to an email. The email led to a short article, and the article eventually led to the book, which just came out this year.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today, we're going to talk about how do you get to the place where you can thrive? We have all been in the place where things are just working for us. Things, maybe even growth comes easy, but it isn't always that way. We have to get through some stages to get to thrive. And that's what we're going to talk about with the author of Survive, Reset, and Thrive, Rebecca Homkes. Rebecca and I talk about her book, and we dive deep into each of those three aspects. The survive is something that you want to be able to do when you're facing challenges and headwinds in your business. You want to have a playbook for that. When you reset, you're changing things. You're making sure that we're really focused on the right things. We toss out things that need to be tossed out, and we're willing to adapt to change. And then that you would get to thrive. You can't jump all the way to thrive, which is one of the lines that she actually talks about in this book is people just want to jump into thriving mode, but it doesn't work that way. So when I was interviewing Rebecca, I was really enlightened by some of the aspects that she does, some different questions she uses. Hopefully you will like them as well. My name is Gene Hammett. I'm an executive coach. We do leadership development, turning managers into leaders. And one of the biggest issues right now is we're helping executive teams find the right alignment and optimizing together, trusting each other. And if you are curious about any of those aspects of your company growth, make sure you reach out to me at gene@genehammett.com. And if you want to just kind of dip your toe into a different way of experiencing what we do and the people we serve, then you can go to our virtual conversations. And I'm going to throw a different link at you at thecoreelevation.com /virtual conversations is a lightweight, conversational style experience with other CEOs, people that have been guests on the show before. And we really want to talk about what does it take to truly create the kind of leadership and the people structures in our company. So we have a different theme every month. If you want to see what the theme is and when the next one is, just go to coreelevation.com /virtual conversations. Now here's the interview with Rebecca. Hi, Rebecca. How are you?
Hi, Jean. I'm excellent. Thanks for having me.
Well, excited to talk about this today. I know you've got a book out that's going to help us understand growth from a different perspective than normal. But before this, tell us a little bit about your background, Rebecca.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be delighted to. So as mentioned, my name is Rebecca Homkes. I'm a high growth strategy specialist. I'm a faculty member at the London Business School in Duke and Boston Consulting Group University, but I spend most of my time working directly with companies who want to grow. So companies who want to double or triple their growth path over a very short period of time.
Well, that's a lot of the people listening here.
Yes, I'm excited to be here. Yes. Yeah.
When you are working with your clients, is there chaos ever?
There's always an element of chaos in every organization. And your goal as a leader is not to eliminate the chaos, right? But to find the nuggets and the insights in the chaos that will channel your next growth journey.
When you were writing this book, I know books are not easy to write. Finishing up our book recently and getting it out into the world feels, I don't want to do it again, but I know I will.
Yes, I always say when someone tells you writing their book was easy, they're either a liar or it's a terrible book, right? So don't listen to that from anyone. Yeah.
The writing part's pretty easy, but it's the editing, it's the refining, it's the shaping and the cutting the things that you don't want to cut to get it to the way you want it to present. In writing your book, what did you learn was really kind of different than the way most people think?
So I wrote the book, and it sounds very similar, Gene, to some of the reasons that led to your last book. I wrote the book because I was having the same conversation over and over and over again. And I've been doing this for well over a decade. But if you remember back to March and April 2020, which I know is a time many of us don't want to go back to, I was just struck of the conversation I was having with entrepreneurs. So several times a day, the same conversation was happening. The entrepreneur would say, why me? why now? We had this growth strategy. I finally got my team in place. I finally got the culture in place. Everything was working. And then this shock, it's not fair. Why me? And I found myself saying, Jean, look, you can't call yourself an entrepreneur if you can't grow the company during hard times or bad times too. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to stabilize because there's been a massive system shock. We're going to reset because the situation's changed. Then we can go back to being a thriving organization. And having that conversation again and again just started to crystallize this playbook. We've got to stabilize or survive. We've got to reset and embrace change, and then we can go back to thriving. And those conversations led to an email. The email led to a short article, and the article eventually led to the book, which just came out this year.
So let's dive into stabilize.
Yeah.
What are the core elements of stabilize? Because I know that the way my clients think about growth is no matter what's going on, their goal is their goal, and they're trying to push hard. They end up working 80 hours a week, and they're trying to, frustrated, trying to pull their team along, but it's not working the way they want. So what is your recipe?
Well, I got a name for that, Gene. I call that delusion, right? Or the I've got this technique that an entrepreneur says, look, I've seen shocks before. I've got my company through this recession, through that shock. I can get it through this again. That's delusion. Now, that's almost as dysfunctional as the paralysis, where you go into this constant holding pattern, right? Where you don't want to make any decisions because you want to wait and wait and wait. Now, here's the thing. Survive is not recession proofing. I don't use the R word. I don't do recession proofing workshops. I won't talk to you about it because great survive is proactive survive. Here's a tip about growth. If you're set up to stabilize at all times, you're always set up for breakthrough growth. So great survive is proactive survive, but there's going to be shocks. There's going to be external shocks, like a potential recession or downturn, like an interest rate surprise, like a surprise election. There's going to be internal shocks. You lose a major investor, you lose a major customer. When those happen, you've got to go into survive mode. You employ your basics, and then you got to utilize some power moves. The goal of survive is to acknowledge you're in it. The hardest part of survive is knowing you're in survive, and then we can start putting the playbook in place to move out and onto the reset.
Rebecca's been talking about survive. And one of the phrases that comes up with my clients whenever I feel them kind of out of sync or they're feeling the pressure and the stress of leadership and growth is I ask them about this comment or this phrase, slow down to speed up. And I don't know who I could attribute this to. It's probably something a million people have said, but slowing down to speed up means you're willing to slow down all the work, slow down and so you can survive, slow down so you can catch your breath, slow down so that you can maybe build a stronger foundation. And that really is something I use quite a bit in my executive coaching. You got to know when to ask these questions and how to respond to them. But I drop this in here for you because I felt like it's very valuable for myself and it's very valuable for my clients. So I give it to you. Slow down to speed up. Back to Rebecca. Well, are we ready to move into reset in this conversation?
Let's move. Yeah.
So what is reset?
Reset means change, and reset's a super scary word, which I didn't appreciate how scary the word was. We often think entrepreneurs love to embrace change and lead the change and be the change. But I very commonly, when I'm having a conversation with CEOs and executives, they'll say, Rebecca, we love Survive, Reset, Thrive. We want to put this in place with one request. Can we not use the word reset? Because my team might get scared if they think we're changing too much. Can we use words instead like reframe or revisit or re-glance over, right, Gina? They're always trying to tone down the word. Reset means change, and it's an amazing, powerful thing. It's you look through and reevaluate all the assumptions, those main choices you made about your beliefs, your right to win, your where to play, and then based on those new insights, you reset where you want to be, what I call your finish line, and then your growth priorities of how you're going to get there.
Where do people get stuck in that reset?
They get stuck by asking the very first question of the reset. We love to ask the question, are we on track to plan? And I know you're sounding, well, shouldn't you be on track to plan, Rebecca? Not during the reset, because asking we're on track to plan makes a pretty weird assumption, right? It makes the assumption there was only one track. We got it right the first time, and the situation hasn't changed. And those aren't assumptions I like to make. So the first question of the reset is, how has the situation changed? And you pause and say, what is new about the situation? What are our top trends? And then, Jean, the real thing is articulate your beliefs. The typical entrepreneur track is to say, here's the 4 or 5 trends we're seeing right now. Because of those trends, we must do these things. There's a middle ground, which is the power move, where you say, I am seeing these trends, and here's our belief. You align as a leadership team on your beliefs or your stance of how that trend's going to move and shape and look, and then you set the implications. When I see teams disagree on choices, it's almost always because they didn't take the time to align on beliefs first.
My mind is kind of racing around this whole concept of projects. I have a lot
Yes.
of clients that might have 10 or 12 projects in a
Mhm.
quarter, which is great if you have thousands of employees, but what if you only have 100?
Yeah.
How do you get people to realize within a quarter you can't, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you can't do too much. You have to
Yeah.
be able to pick the right amount of projects and initiatives to do them well and finish them. Otherwise, it just throws everything off.
So a couple of things here. So I would argue, even if you have thousands of people, that's too many projects, right? The notion of a breakthrough growth strategy is it involves ruthless prioritization. Now, ruthless prioritization is scary. And you know why it's scary? It's because we're afraid we're going to get the list wrong. The reason we put so many things on the list is I think we're always afraid that 2 or 3 things are the 10 or 20 things we take off the list. That was the it. Those were the big growth things. Here's what you want to do. You want to be ruthlessly prioritized on a few priorities while building the capability of adaptability. And it goes back to our beliefs. I've set my beliefs. Because of those beliefs, I've set my choices, are those key implications. But then you're going to go into parallel pathing. We're going to pull something from product development, okay? So as I'm executing my priorities, I'm stress testing my beliefs. And as I get learning from my beliefs, I'm going to bring them back in and make those small adjustments and adaptations. And when beliefs aren't affirmed, I might take a priority off the list and put a new one back on. So your beliefs start you, parallel pathing the testing, and then build adaptability. Because if you're adaptable, you can do this ruthless prioritization.
Now, she's been talking about reset, and I love the concept of reset. I love the fact that change actually is invigorating to me. It isn't fun always, but I know that there's a payoff to the end. If we're willing to really change, it will help. One of the things I want you to do, and this comes from years of speaking on stages, and your content in a stage can be stale. It can stay the same. And what you want to do is break it up into chunks, much like you break your businesses up into chunks or departments or projects. And you have to re-audition in the right chunks for those speeches. And so what I'm offering you is a chance, just a way to think about this is, all the projects that you have on your list right now. How do you re-audition in the projects? Don't just keep moving forward with things because you said you would. Really think about it. Be ruthless with your ability to prioritize, and fewer is actually better because the team will get some wins on the board. We get some feedback. We're able to realize the benefit behind it. But if we just have projects that go on and on and on, and because we have too many projects that things become to be chaotic, that doesn't help morale or engagement, and certainly doesn't help leadership. So just think about re-auditioning your projects to figure out what your new priorities are as things have reset. Back to Rebecca. Now we're moving into Thrive. Before we get there, how do we know that we're ready to go from reset to Thrive?
If you fully feel like you're ready to move into Thrive, it's too late, right? Every movement across the survive, reset, thrive loop is going to feel a little bit premature, and that's okay. The real capability of growth is building the transitions, not necessarily the skill sets in any mode. Now, you've quote unquote finished the reset when you've gone through those critical questions. Now, what are our critical beliefs? What's our right to win? Where are we going to play? What is success? And then the so what, those top priorities. Then you're going to start moving into the thrive once you have those. But you want to start going when you've got enough insights to move, not when you have full data that you're sure. Because if you're waiting that long, it's too late. You're missing the insight and you're moving with everyone else in the industry.
All right. Now that we're at Thrive, which is where everyone wants to be anyway, right? We want to be thriving in our organizations, money's flowing, clients are happy, and employees are just thriving as well. What are the core elements of Thrive?
Well, the first core element of Thrive, and I'm going to sound like I'm going to go into professor mode, okay? You've got to do the hard work of survive and reset first. I know entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs. The number one request of me is, just send me the last 2 chapters of the book. I just want to talk about Thrive, right? And I actually asked the publisher if we could send the second 2 chapters only after you promised you've read the first ones, which of course they didn't let me do. But no, all joking aside, Gene, you've got to do the hard work first. Here's the second thing, and it's a hidden one. A lot of times we get through the reset, we're into Thrive, and we go into what's called execution mode. That's actually a really scary phrase to me. The worst thing you can say to me, which makes me know you're in trouble, is this. You say, we're just in heads down execution mode. Thriving is about being heads up. It's looking for the beliefs that might be changing and building that adaptability in. Growth is a capability. It is not a given. You can go through the reset and have the insights, but if you don't build the capability of growth, you won't get there. And this takes time. And this is a frustrating time because you, as the entrepreneur, you see the pathway, you see the insights, but you've got to slow down to speed up and say, I've got to build this capability in my team to execute with me as we take these priorities forward. And that is where I see companies fall apart the most. They've gone through the reset, but they don't have the patience to build the capability of growth.
Fantastic to talk about survive, reset, and thrive. As a leader, how do you get your team on board with this shift, this new approach? Because again, teams resist change.
Yeah. This is going to sound cliche, but you've got to manage the change if you want to bring your team with you. And that is being honest about where you are. The most powerful thing you can do as a leader is to say, we are in survive mode. It sucks. Like we don't want to be here, but we're going to embrace it because then we can move out of it. You can't move out of something you haven't acknowledged you've moved into. You're being part of the reset questions. And then you use the reset you and the team came up with. There's a very classic entrepreneur trap of go through the strategy discussions with your team and then decide, oh, I've got a better idea now because something new has happened. You've got to bring the team with you and make sure you're building that capability as you go. Role model the change, clear, simple, transparent messages, and don't run too far ahead of your team. A little bit, great. Too far ahead, they can't see you anymore.
Where do people fall the most inside of this process?
Yeah. Many different places. One is not acknowledging where they are and trying to rush, especially the reset. Another is I call it my team are idiots fallacy, right? So you start on the process and it's like, oh, they just don't get it. They just don't get how much the things are changing. I'm just going to do it. It'll be easier for them if I do it myself. You can't build the capability of growth if you didn't bring them along in the reset. The other is the holding pattern. Is, oh, we got this big election. Let's just wait till after the election. Oh, let's just wait till after this regulatory decision. And we're keep postponing moving out of the reset because we keep feeling there'll be this beautiful clarity just a couple months down the road. That clarity won't come, right? Uncertainty is the new certainty. One of the traps is just acknowledging we're living in an uncertain world and building a strategy to adapt to that, not trying to force the world to go into old strategy tools.
Now, Rebecca's been talking about being transparent. Now, she's not familiar with my work, but I know from other fast growth companies, many of the interviews I've had on here, the importance of transparency is undeniable. In fact, I remember the research we did years ago, and that came back as transparency actually was the number one most important element to a company's growth. Now, think about that for a second. Being able to share with your team that things aren't going well. We are behind on goals. We are not getting the same kind of results that we used to out of this strategy or this campaign. Being able to be transparent with your team allows them to rally for you, not rally against you, but rally for you if you have the right team. Maybe it doesn't work if you have a team of assholes. Hopefully that's not the case. But if you have a team that cares about you and you have cared about them, then they will rally for you if you're transparent with them. Back to Rebecca. We're going to wrap up here. And I love the conversation, Rebecca, but I'd love for you to tell us maybe a story of a client that has gone through these. And of course, you don't have to give us their name or anything like that unless you want to, but just kind of give us the narrative of this journey.
So many examples. And of course, I'm going to tease and we'll ask your listeners to read the book. We've got Gordon Food Service, one of the largest distributors in the US, WD-40. But one of my favorites is a company called Skanska Park, and they're based across Scandinavia. And they're a zoo and amusement park. And during COVID, of course, everything was shut down. And they were an old family company. He was the third generation founder. And he was thinking, on my watch, the family company is going to die, right? They employed every part of this playbook. They came out of Survive, and they were struggling to get the team out of Survive. So they did one of my favorite moves ever. He split his team into two. He made a Survive team and a Reset team. Look, to become Thrive, we've got to play offense and defense at the same time. Half the leadership team worked on Survive, half worked on Reset. They both did so with trust, knowing the other one was. And then doing so, and the second thing they did was they built trust. They told their customers, we're going to screw a lot of stuff up. As we go into this year and into next year, we're going to make a ton of mistakes. Have patience with us, but we're going to learn from them. And because they told their customers they were going to make mistakes, employees were empowered to do all of these things. And everywhere from frontline employees to the very top Gene did all of these tests and learns and experiments, which not only are they using, the entire industry is now applying around this world. The small amusement park and zoo in Sweden and Denmark is now becoming a playbook for amusement parks all around the world. They're one of my favorites.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I want to switch gears a little bit here. You've
Sure.
got a background in with London
Economics,
Business
actually. My
School
PhD
and
is in
Fuqua.
economics. Yes. Yeah.
Uh, you're facing you're having these people. I don't want you to talk about any
Yeah.
specific school or whatnot, but what are some of the challenges coming in with this group of leaders? Because I know they're coming to learn about the business models and the business cases, but from a leadership standpoint, it seems like
Mhm.
business schools don't really focus much on that, but you get to probably see it firsthand.
I get to see it firsthand. I'm also very lucky in that, the people that I see are self-selecting to executive education, focused on growth strategy and AI transformation. So they're focusing on the topics of change. A big leadership challenge right now is we are unfortunately trained early in our careers that leaders have all the answers. And the retraining is a leader's job is not to have all the answers, it's to have the right questions that you're asking back of your team, that you're asking to the industry and embracing that. We are trained that leaders should be the smartest person in the room. The best leaders I know acknowledge what they don't know and ask for help for their team around them. And we're almost trained to manage uncertainty down, right? But the leader's job is to build a certain environment. And there's a key to that, right? There is something about building what I call internal predictability. But really, we need to help leaders more just embrace the uncertainty, but practically. Everyone's tired of the cliche crap, embrace uncertainty. We know. But our job now is to help them very practically do it with playbooks they can bring home.
One last
Yeah.
question. We've been talking about your book. We've been talking
Yeah.
about these different leadership skills. Is there anything that we've left out that you feel like we need to know that we haven't already discussed?
I think one of the big things that gets left behind in a lot of strategy and leadership books is that growth is a team sport, right? We often put, turnarounds or transformations or even great growth journeys to the founder story or the CEO or leadership team. But growth is a team sport, and it's about bringing your team with you. You're going to have to move a little bit faster than most of them are comfortable. High growth, as you know very well, Gene, it's about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, but it's a team sport. And if you don't want to embrace that, leading a high growth journey might not be for you.
Fantastic. Rebecca, thanks for being here and sharing your wisdom on the podcast.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Wow, I love talking to Rebecca about her book, Survive, Reset, and Thrive. If you want to make sure you pick up a copy, go to it wherever you buy books. But what I really liked about today's conversation is it's a little bit different than normal. It's not the same old, same old. She has a different perspective and different nomenclature, different questions. And that really does spark some intrigue with me because I feel like she's got her finger on the pulse of something. And I really believe that this would help you and your company. So that's the reason I have guests like this on the show. If you're looking for more CEOs of fast growth companies, stay tuned. We have many more coming your way. When you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, live with courage. We'll see you next time.